Hi everyone, Leanne here from Jada Blossom, and it is time for the February 2025 release hop, and I have two cards to share. Hey, so I'm using Jada Blossom's brand new Gnome Dies Beekeeper add-ons. Their new Be Kind stamp set, their Gnome Friends Bear Dies, and the Bear Faces stamp set. The Gnome Dies Girl Gnome Face add-ons, the Bear Hugs stamp set, along with Jada Blossom's Build-A-Booth die. And I'm also using, I put this one together, before the video. You've seen me do that before. I'm using the Be Happy 12-inch paper line and the 6-inch paper line. So first I have a piece of paper from the 12-inch paper line, cut at 1/8 of an inch smaller than an A2 size card base. And I'm just going to add a little bit of ATG tape and glue around the edge and stick it down to my Paper Trank white card base, 4.25 by 11, scored at 5.5 inches. I've got a black piece of foam here just so I can line this up. Actually, I think that I cut this 1/16 of an inch smaller than an A2 size card base. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to add a 1-inch strip of green American Crafts cardstock to the bottom of this, sort of representing grass. And I'm just going to run that along the bottom and trim off the overhang with a pair of scissors. There we go. And on the inside, I'm going to add some scraps of paper. So I've got a 1-inch strip of black American Crafts cardstock and then a couple strips of paper from the Be Happy 6-inch pad from Echo Park. They're like 1/2-inch strips. And I'm going to add those down as well. And I'm just going to trim off or trim the ends, at an angle for fun. And then I'm going to add them to the bottom of this card here on the inside. There we go. And then I'm going to add this other one, and I will cut that off at an angle as well and add that on as well. Just, to decorate the inside a little bit. You can use up your scraps doing this. There we are, and trimming off that overhang with a pair of scissors. There we go. And I'm just reinforcing that fold with my Teflon bone folder. So now I'm going to stamp my sentiment for the front of the card from that Be Kind stamp set. And I'm going to stamp on this sign piece that I cut out using Paper Trank white cardstock. And that little die cut is from the Build-A-Booth dies. So I'm going to stamp that in my Misty with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. So it says Fresh Honey for Sale. And I'll stamp that a couple of times just to get a nice sharp image. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to stamp a sentiment on the inside from that Bear Hugs stamp set. So it says have a berry happy birthday. Stamping it in that same VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. There we go. And super cute stuff. There. Now I'm going to use a couple of stickers from that Echo Park Be Happy 12-inch paper line. There's a sticker sheet that you get with it, the collection, and that's what I put on the inside. So now I am going to do some stamping. I'm going to stamp a bear face on the bear dies. Now I cut the bear out of American Crafts yellow cardstock. And I guess you can imagine who I'm trying to make here, right? So I'm going to stamp this little face in that same VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. There we go. Super cute, right? And now I'm going to add the little muzzle in place. And I'm going to stamp it again. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the muzzle or not at this point. There we go. And isn't that cute? Oh, he's so cute. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how this little bear is going to look peeking out of his booth. So trying to get an idea. Got arms. It's like, okay, how's this going to go? And like I said, I also cut, this is the dress from the Gnome Dies Girl Gnome Face add-on, something like that. And I cut it out of pure poppy cardstock, and I cut it twice because I'm going to make a V-necked red t-shirt for my bear, because you know I'm trying to make Pooh Bear, right? So the two edges of the dress will become his little sleeves. And isn't that cute? And I'm using my favorite red, right? Pure Poppy from Paper Tray Ink. And I'm just adding on these little sleeves with some glue. And didn't that turn out cute? Like, it's like perfect. The perfect little red t-shirt for this bear. And like the bottom part that looks like a dress, that's going to be covered anyway. So, you know, all that's going to show is the top part. So I'm going to get that in place on this bear. There we go. Isn't that sweet? And now I am going to get this guy looking like Pooh Bear. So I'm going to add his little face in place. Oops, I'm going to get the little slivers of paper hangers on off of it using that little nail sponge. And oops, I've got a little sticky on there that I'm going to use my adhesive eraser to remove. Now I'm going to glue down this little bear face on top of my other bear piece. Right, there we go. Isn't he cute? Just adorable stuff, right? And I did cut the insides of his ears out of the same yellow because Pooh Bear doesn't have like any color in his ears. So I thought, oh, I'll just leave them as they are. There we go. And isn't that cute? And I'm going to stick down his little muzzle as well, because why not? And now I've got a little winking Pooh Bear. So I'm going to grab a secure white Jelly Roll pen and a number 10, add the highlight to his nose, and color in the highlight on his little eye. And there we go. So I've got my little pot of honey that I put together on the Beekeeper add-ons assembly video. So you can check that out. But I just wanted to, you know, get this all organized. I also assembled these on the same video. So you can watch me do that on the assembly video for those. We go. So I did cut out a few more of these jars, two more. And I cut them out of Honey Nut cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. And then the yellow was cut from American Crafts yellow cardstock. And I'm just going to put these guys together. The little black interiors of those jars was cut from American Crafts black cardstock. So Pooh Bear is going to be selling honey, although he's winking, so he might be just joking and he's going to eat all this honey himself. But you get the gist. A bear selling honey is kind of a funny thing. So we are going to get these jars finished. And then we will assemble the rest of our card here in just a moment. So there we go. I'm going to just get the little slivers off with my nail sponge there. This works really well to get those little slivers of paper off. And then I'm going to add the little honey drips. And that is also American Crafts yellow cardstock. It's a little bit darker. And adding it with my Bearly Art glue again. There we go. And isn't that cute? Just super cute. I do add some Spectrum Noir Clear Sparkle to the honey. I don't think I do it during the video, but I do add it eventually. Okay, so I am just removing the little feet there because they're not going to show anyway. And I'm trying to get the arms in where I want them and I'm going to have him holding the jar of honey in one arm. So I tucked the little arm underneath. And then I'm going to add on the little paw holding the honey. But you see I cut one side off because I just want him holding it in his left paw. Or on the right side of the card, whatever you want to call it. So there we are. So I'm just trying to get this in place. And now I am going to add a strip of ATG tape to the back so I can kind of put him in place in his little booth. I'm just going to remove that other little foot nub. And there we go. And I'm going to add on my little jar of honey. You saw that I popped up his little paw as well. So that's all set to go. And there he is, holding it in his one arm. Isn't that cute? There we go. And I do use my reverse tweezers to clamp it in place. Next, I'm going to add this other little arm in place. And then I will add, there we go, with a little bit of glue. And then I will add the other little paw eventually here. So it looks like he's holding on to the front of his booth. But now that we have this guy in place, I'm going to stick him down onto my card base. So I'm going to add some ATG tape over the whole back here, adding it to Pooh Bear himself as well. That'll keep everything in place. And then I'm going to line that up on my card front. There we go. Now you'll notice that I did use Geeman Tyndalo wood grain cardstock for the booth. I did get that at cutcardstock.com back in the day, but I believe other places sell wood grain cardstock. So that's all it is. So it's like a craft color. And there's my sign, Fresh Honey for Sale. I'm going to add this little beehive as well. I cut it out of white paper tray ink cardstock just to make it a little bit thicker. When I pop it up, it will, it'll stay level when it's popped up, just making it a little thicker. That's cut from American Crafts yellow cardstock, and then the little door is cut from paper tray ink honey nut, just like the little honey jars. Okay, so now I am going to add some dimensionals to the back of this guy, and we'll have this hanging on the left side of the booth as you're looking at it. Or I guess the right-hand side if you're looking at it from Pooh's view, but you get my meaning. I'm going to slip some little dimensionals behind his little ears. There, so he kind of pops forward a bit. Now I am going to add my little honey jars to the front of this little scene. And I just think it looks adorable. So like I said, the little booth is that wood grain cardstock, and then I colored in all the nail heads, the little empty spots, with black glaze Secura pen. So it just looks a little shiny, and it kind of looks like nail heads. So now I've added in my other jar, and I did use the tree stump die that I forgot to mention for this little piece of grass. And I'm going to add a few pieces of grass to this just for fun. Cut out of that same American Crafts cardstock. And then I also cut one out of Doodlebug's Candy Stripe and Sprinkles, just so that one of them has a pattern, looks a little bit different, right? And it just, a little bit of different color, it just kind of pops a little bit. And that's what I was going for. So isn't that cute? So I'm just adding some of these scrapbook adhesives, little foam squares behind some of this grass, just to make sure, because it's hanging over the edge of that booth, I don't want it to get squashed and dip down. I want to keep everything level. So I'm just going to squeeze them in behind there a little bit, which I do a lot. I kind of go back and zhuzh things a little bit, usually when I'm card creating. So I'm just adding a few little strips of foam behind them. And I'm going to add another little strip here in a second behind this one as well. Whoops. I guess I could have cut this out of the video and let you think I'm perfect, but I am not perfect. I'm forever messing around with things. Okay, so now I'm just going to pop his little paw up like he's holding on to the edge of that booth with the dimensional there. And isn't that cute? Look how cute he is. And now I'm going to use these little bees that I put together on the Gnome Dies, what's it called? The Gnome Dies Beekeeper add-ons. And remember, you can watch me put the bees together on that. But I'm just going to add the 3 bees to the front of this card. Because how cute, right? I really wanted to use the chubby bee again because it's my favorite. But, I figured I've got to use these little bees on this one. So I'm going to have them, 3 little bees, like I said, popping them up with these scrapbook adhesives. It's not as high as Stampin' Up! Dimensional. you know, because there's a lot of dimension on this card. So there we go. Isn't that the sweetest? So now I'm going on to card 2. So I'm using Bee Faces, the Tree Swing die, the Be Kind stamp set, the Gnome Friends Honeybee die stamp set. Those are all new. Sunflower dies and Stitch Square dies, all from Jaded Blossom. And I'm using Echo Park's 6x6 inch paper pad and the 12-inch paper line as well. And I did put that bee together on the honeybee assembly video, so check that out. So I went ahead and I cut out these leaves out of American Crafts green cardstock. And then I cut out, I'm inking them in this Distress Oxide ink in Mowed Lawn, but I don't like it. So I end up pulling in a darker green in Forest Moss, and I'm going to ink around them with that. There we go. And I'm going to build a little honeybee scene for this guy. So I'm just, like I said, inking around these little leaves. Remember, these sunflower dies can be whatever flower you want. And in this one, I'm making them to kind of look like daisies. Now, I was going to ink around the outside of that honey net cardstock for the center with fossilized amber, but I chose to use Vintage Photo instead. And now for this one, I'm going to use Distress Oxide ink and just ink blend the centers of these flowers a little bit. And these were cut from Paper Tray Ink white cardstock. I'm just trying to make them look like daisies, right? Now I'm going to add, this is the 12-inch paper line from Echo Park's Be Happy, and I cut it out with the 4-inch Stitch Square die from Jaded Blossom. And I'm going to stick it down onto my square 4.25-inch square card made out of Paper Tray Ink white cardstock. So there'll be a little bit of a border there. This is a pretty simple card as I already have the honeybee assembled, right? It would have taken a little bit longer if I had to put the bee together. So there we go. On the inside, I'm going to add a strip of cardstock from that 6-inch paper line, Echo Park Be Happy. There we go. And it's about 1 inch wide and it's got an angled cut at the end. Just going to stick that down with some ATG tape. Then I'm just reinforcing that fold again. There we are. Now I am going to glue these daisies together, or flower tops. I did cut 2. I'm going to offset them so the flower looks nice and full. I do weight it down. Now I'm going to add my center that's cut from Honey Nut Paper Tray Ink cardstock. There we go, and I do weight that down as well. Now that it's dry, I'm going to get it sort of in place, trying to decide what this is going to look like. That's what I've got going. It's going to look like this little bee is gathering some pollen on this nice big daisy. So I'm going to glue this down flat on the front of my card. And I'm going to add some glue to the back of my leaves as well. There we go. So there's lots of uses for these sunflower dies, right? So I'm just going to slip those underneath, and they're really simple to use too. I do weight it down with an acrylic block. Now I'm going to do some stamping. I'm taking the Sentiment Biz from the Be Kind stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it 3 times onto American Crafts yellow cardstock. Using my Misty and some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, kind of my jam. And then I will cut them out with the Be Kind outline dies. Didn't mention that at the beginning of the video, I don't think. But I will cut that out using my Anna Griffin Empress machine. There we go. I do tape them in place with some Easy C tape while I'm reaching for my little tape so it doesn't slide and move in the die cutting process. So I do go ahead and I cut them out of white Paper Tray Ink cardstock as well. And then I'm going to layer them up. So, you know, the yellow goes on top of the white. The white will make it thicker and a little bit more firm, and, you know, so it doesn't get all bent and messy when it goes through the mail. So I'm just layering them up. And I add, you know, for all 3. There we go. So biz, biz, biz. There we go. And I do weight them down with an acrylic block to make sure they dry nice and flat. There we are. Now I'm going to stamp my sentiment on the inside of the card, and I'm using Buzzing By to say happy birthday. And I'm using my Misty Corner just to get it straight. That works great when the sentiment is straight, right? And now I am going to use my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink to do some stamping. There we go. And isn't that cute? I'm going to take some stickers from the Echo Park Be Happy 12-inch paper line. That's the sticker sheet. And there we are, adding the little sticker to the inside. Now I'm going to pop up this adorable little bee with some dimensionals from Stampin' Up. Now for this little bee, I did stamp her face in VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I used EK Success chalk on her cheeks, a BG15 marker, on her eye, along with a secure white Jelly Roll pen and a number 8 and 10. Let me see what else. American Crafts yellow cardstock, black cardstock, and Paper Tray Ink Smoky Shadow cardstock. But like I said, you can watch me put them together or assemble them on the, what's it called again? Honeybee Dies assembly video. So you can check that out. There we go. And I'm peeling off all the backings off all these dimensionals. There we go. I guess I could have cut this out of the video too. I'm kind of a lazy editor, truth be told. So now I'm going to pop this adorable little bee in place. Isn't she the cutest thing? There we go. And then I'm going to add the 3 biz, biz, biz on the card as well. Just looks like the bee's telling you a secret, right? With the winky face. So we're going to pop them up. So biz. I'm trying to go for a visual triangle here. That's what I usually try to do. So biz, biz, and then one more on the flower itself. And then we will have a super cute, quick card design. And there we go. Isn't that the sweetest little thing? I just love these bees. They just crack me up with their adorable little faces. There we go. So thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to hop on over to the Jada Blossom blog, be inspired by the team, and get hopping. The Jada Blossom store to get this amazing release. And thank you as always for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. Make sure you go over and check out my release and review. If you still aren't sure you want this release, you do. It's so cute. And thank you. Bye, everybody.